I received an email a few weeks back asking if I was interested in being a part of the YouTube LG G4 trial program. I thought it might be some sort of a joke or a scam until I looked at the profile the message was coming from, and it was LG USA. I went ahead and submitted my info to them, and about 2 weeks later, which was about a week ago now, the G4 showed up. It came with a card describing the trial program and asked me to post photos to social media using the hashtag ExploreLGG4, so I've been doing just that. I'm sure you've seen enough G4 unboxings already, so I will make this quick. In the box you'll find the G4, which we always just put off to the side, the power adapter rated for 5 volts at 1.8 amps, a micro USB cable, and the 3000 milliamp hour battery. And that is one of the truly awesome features of this phone. The battery is removable and replaceable, and it's also an excellent size. Now when you pull the back off the phone, you're greeted by, of course, that battery bay, as well as a micro SIM slot and a micro SD card slot, which can take up to a massive 2 terabyte micro SD card. Quickly taking a look around the rest of the phone, you'll see the traditional LG buttons on the back, just below that 16 megapixel f1.8 aperture camera. You'll also find the laser autofocus, the LED flash, which is next to the brand new color spectrum sensor, and unfortunately, the rear-facing speaker. Now having the buttons on the back means that the sides can remain nice and clean. On the bottom you'll find the 3.5mm headphone jack, a micro USB port and the microphone, and on top is another noise cancelling microphone and an IR blaster. Moving on to the front of the device, you'll see that beautiful 5.5-inch Quad HD IPS quantum display, as well as the 8 megapixel f2.0 aperture front-facing camera. And once you dive into actually using the phone, you'll see LG's updated skin running on top of Android 5.1. And actually, performance with it is just as good as you would expect from a flagship. Even though it's not the highest end processor that you can get right now, it scores really well in benchmarks, and it runs the UI and all the apps I've thrown at it very smoothly, and gaming on it ran just fine. That said, I'm not a hardcore mobile gamer, but every 3D game that I threw at it ran smoothly, as you can see. It does get just a little bit warm when you're gaming, but I haven't noticed anything uncomfortable. Definitely not as hot as the Galaxy S6 gets. Now to go ahead and address the elephant in the room, as I mentioned earlier, I'm not a huge fan of the rear-facing speaker. The speaker itself sounds good, and it can put out a pretty decent amount of sound. It's just facing the wrong way. I guess I just need to start looking around for 3D printed docks to help redirect the sound to the front. For the design, it's pretty typical LG. Nothing wrong with that. It's not slim or sleek like some of the others, but it's comfortable in the hand, and there's just a little bit of a curve to the screen that's very nice against your face. And of course, having that removable back just makes all of it worthwhile. And on certain models, the removable back is actually a beautiful leather, brown or black leather, which I really would have preferred, but since it's removable, interchangeable, if I can buy one later, I can always swap out for that. And what do you find under that removable back? The battery. So let's go ahead and move on to that. 3000 milliamp hours isn't really anything new to LG, but it is one of the biggest batteries in a flagship out right now. Under my normal usage, I regularly found myself with about 60% battery left at the end of one day, and under heavy usage, including gaming, an hour of video playback or so, and more things than that, I got it as low as about 27% after one day, with 2.5 hours of screen on time. Although I've heard of other people getting even higher screen on times, 4 hours, 5 hours, things like that. But I didn't drain it all the way down, so I can't really say that. Either way, definitely very impressive. Now, it does not support wireless charging out of the box, that's a bit of a bummer, but you can buy an accessory after the fact. I believe it's the Quick Circle charging case, and it adds Qi charging to it. So again, it's a bit of a bummer it doesn't come with it, but at least you can add it after the fact. And from what I understand, it does actually support Qualcomm's quick charge technology, meaning it can go from 0 to 60% in about 30 minutes, so I'm a huge fan of that. However, I'm not sure it's actually enabled on my device. In testing, I was able to go from 33% to 64% in about a half an hour, so not quite the same, but I seem to remember reading somewhere that it could be enabled later in a firmware update. And also, under that removable back, you do have space to put in a micro SD card. I normally wouldn't need one, but it is a nice option to have, and since the G4 does only come with 32 gigs of built-in storage, I might end up needing it after all. 4K video does take up an awful lot of space. And taking a bit of a weird left turn, or at least a top turn, the IR blaster. And again, I normally don't watch much TV, so I didn't think that I would care much about having an IR blaster in my device, but then I realized that most of the TVs in my house are all the same brand. And I was able to set up one remote profile on here that could control all of them. And all I have to do is swipe right from my home screen, and there I have access to it. And it's just the most awesome thing. Plus, the remote app they include has an input button, so I can very easily swap over to a different HDMI input or back over to cable or antenna without having to use the TV remote, and I love that. So what's left? Oh yeah, the camera. Let me just start off by saying how absolutely amazed I am at this entire generation of flagship devices. These things can seriously replace my point and shoot camera. And I normally shoot with the Sony RX100, which is over there, which is an amazing camera. For photos though, it is just awesome. Nice vivid colors, crystal clear shots, and it's always pretty much exactly in focus, just how you'd want it to be. It even does decently in low light. It has that f1.8 aperture on the back lens, so you would expect it to do pretty well. For videos, it is equally awesome as well. It's got 3-axis optical image stabilization, so things are nice and smooth. It can do 4K video at 30 frames per second, but unfortunately, mine is only doing that at 30 megabits per second right now, which is a little bit low for 4K. I've heard of some other people's G4s doing 48 megabits per second, which is also what the Galaxy S6 does, and I would assume it's just a matter of a simple software update to fix that. And if there is no software update that comes for it, I'm sure there will be a mod available from XDA before too long. Now, a couple of downsides to the camera. One, it does not do 1080p video at 60 frames per second. And two, it could actually use more modes. It has auto, panorama, and dual, and that's what you get. I wouldn't mind seeing an action or a sports option that tries to get higher shutter speeds, or maybe a night mode, which does what it can to try to reduce noise. But the built-in auto mode it's got does a pretty decent job. And the front-facing camera is surprisingly good as well. As you probably saw from my last In Case You Missed It video, it was done entirely using the front-facing camera on the G4. And if you're into taking selfies, it does have a built-in Beautify filter, which can smooth out your skin and make it look nice and soft. I quickly turned that off because, again, it was kind of soft and it made me look a little funny. And there's also a sort of a soft flash you can enable in that front-facing selfie mode, which lights up the screen and makes the selfie section smaller so you get all of its extra light on your face to help illuminate things. And there's a few other gimmicky things to the camera, like the ability to make a fist to take a selfie, or automatically taking photos by just saying cheese or whiskey. But one of the most useful features about the camera is that you can put it in manual mode. In manual mode, you can specify the white balance, you can manually focus, set ISO sensitivity, shutter speed, and even capture raw images, which you can edit later. Now anyway, I'm sure that I haven't touched on half the things you probably wanted to hear about this phone, but let's just leave it at this. It's great. It's a flagship, it's super powerful, it's got excellent battery life, and the ability to swap out your battery, and it has a wicked camera in it. So if you're in the market, and this is in your price range, don't think twice. But that is going to be about all from me for today. If you like this video, make sure to leave me a thumbs up down below the video, I definitely appreciate it, and subscribe to receive more videos whenever they become available. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time.